Hey, what's happening, everybody? It's JB. Welcome to my bedroom. I decided to make this from just hanging out in bed today. It's a Wednesday morning, and we're going to talk about something today that I am working on the most in my life right now. And you might have heard that expression. Sometimes it's best to teach what you most need to learn because it reinforces it. So I'm going to teach what I've been learning the most myself lately. And this is something so critical, so deep to what it means to be a successful human being. I really feel like what I'm about to share is the emerging paradigm for what entrepreneurs and people in general are shifting into. And it is counterintuitive, and it might go against everything in your body that you've always known and the ways you've been and thought and how you see the world and all these things. But I promise you, if we're going to evolve as a species, this is where we're going. And the word is surrender. It is surrender. And I'm going to dive into what surrender means a little bit more today. But before I do, I want to show you this book. I'm reading this book right now. Just showed up in my life called The Ecstasy of Surrender. Thank you, Patrick Combs. Total divine gift, because this is like exactly where I'm at. And he just shows up for this lunch meeting with this book. And I'm like, whoa. And the author, Judith Orloff, who's really cool, is talking about the parts of our brain, right? The at the very top of the brain stem, the reptilian brain, which is often called, which is our most primal functioning. It's the very sort of first part of our brains that ever evolved and emerged, and then on top of that was built the limbic system, and then the cerebral cortex, which is all of our higher faculties, our emotional processing, our amazing mental abilities. But at the root of everything is this very ancient, raw, primal reptilian brain that really only sees the world in terms of fight or flight. It's life or death. It's power and struggle. That's it. I mean, that's how reptilians are. That is the very programming of that part of our brain. And unfortunately, that part of our brain has not caught up to where we've actually evolved to as a species. We don't need this complete fight or flight, biologically programmed, fear instincts nearly as much as we did when we were reptiles, okay? Or when we were, out in the bushes and there's lions and tigers and bears, oh my, everywhere. We just don't need that stuff anymore. Yet unfortunately, so much of our biological program is still conditioned to be that way. It's still conditioned to seek power because power is what gives you force, which is what gives you control, which is what guarantees your survival. Everything comes back to survival, survival, survival. But we're evolving. Right? Our survival isn't nearly as at risk like it was even 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. So our biological processes are catching up. And that's why surrender is so important. And Judith actually made some cool distinctions with the neurochemicals in our brain and how they equate to these two different paradigms. Right? Some of those neurochemicals really equate to the old power and force and survival paradigm. And some, actually equate to the new sort of surrendered, in the flow, sort of loving, connected paradigm. And the distinctions she made I want to share with you because they were really cool. First off, the power chemicals are all adrenaline, testosterone, dopamine. This is like your total pleasure seeking. Like dopamine is like pleasure seeking, dopamine is essentially associated with drug addictions because it is powerful. Even the pleasure seeking activities that aren't drugs are as powerful as drugs. Sex, all that. That's all your dopamine center, right? Your testosterone centers really is this power and sort of just like if you've ever seen anybody jacked up on testosterone, they're not very compassionate. You're very just sort of short, cold. You're just ruthless sort of power. Adrenaline, we know what adrenaline is. It's sort of that rush you get, that thrill seeking, that makes you feel completely alive in the moment. But, it takes all this crazy stuff in order to jack your adrenaline. And so people actually can get addicted to these sort of adrenaline rushes. So that's that sort of old paradigm associated with power survival. Now, the new paradigm, the equation of that in neurochemical terms is oxytocin, which is actually the neurochemical that is emitted when mother's giving birth. It's what creates that unbelievable connection and like awe-inspiring moment. There's oxytocin also emitted when you're making love with your partner. Couples intimacy releases oxytocin, serotonin, endorphins. These are the lighter sides of things. So the reason why I wanted to bring that up is because there's actually a very real... How am I doing on time, too? Oh, my God, 6 minutes. Jesus. All right, I'm just going to keep going. So the reason why I bring this up is because there's this real aspect of surrender that exists in our physiology. And why surrender is so important and why I want to talk about this is because all this research is coming out that is showing us that when we try to control things, when we have a problem and we obsess about it, as if obsessing about it is going to help us control it, which is going to help us survive, we're actually making ourselves incredibly ineffective. And all of the greatest teachers, the greatest, knowledge holders of time have always talked about this aspect of surrendering. Even, from Jesus to let go and let God, to the Buddha, to neuroscientists, everybody's been talking about surrendering and how surrendering or letting go actually enables us to be more powerful human beings and solve problems that we can't possibly solve when we're trying to control everything, when we're obsessing or worrying or anxious about. We can't solve problems nearly as effective as you can solve a problem when you actually surrender the problem. When you actually let it go, you create space. You create this amazing amount of space around the problem that you're trying to solve. Einstein said it best. Einstein said that he would take thinking to its rational edge when he was trying to solve incredibly complex physics equations and whatnot. He would take thinking to its rational edge, and then he would let it go. He would go walk off into nature, or he would take a bath, and that's when you have that eureka moment. It just comes to you almost out of some other place when you're not thinking about it, because you've surrendered to a power greater than yourself. You've let it go and you've put your trust and your faith that there's something bigger than all of us. There's something bigger than being a human being. There's a spiritual energy, a source that is responsible for all of life, for all wisdom, all knowledge, everything. And when we surrender, when we let go, when we clear space, we're opening ourselves up to access this deeper intuitive knowledge, this deeper wisdom that exists when you connect to Source. But you can only connect to Source when you surrender. If you're trying to control everything, you're basically saying, I know best. Screw you, Source. Screw you, Infinity. I don't need your help. Why would we say that? We need Infinity's help. We need Source's help. So, my friends, if you've got a problem, if you've got something going on in your life right now, if you need help with something, today, make it the day that you practice surrendering. Consciously choose to let go of whatever you're obsessing about. Let go of whatever your problem is. Surrender it. Go create space in your life. Walk in nature. Be with friends. Read some books. But surrender the problem that you're obsessing about or working on right now. Set an intention that the answer is going to come to you. You're going to get a sign. You're going to have an intuitive hit about what the answer is. But you're surrendering the problem. You're surrendering to the process. You're just showing up in this present moment, knowing that the source, the power of the divine, has got your back. and you don't need to control it. Surrender your reptilian brain and step fully into your cerebral cortex, your deeper emotional human capacities of knowing that you're connected to something larger than yourself and you're safe, and the answer will come, and surrender it. We'll talk to you later, guys.